Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this week's iHomes update. Apologize for my voice. I had a sore throat and lost it. A little bit of coaching this weekend. I was coaching some kids. And so this week we wanted to talk about pricing models, talk about appraised, assessed, Zestimate, market value, and kind of get into that. First, I'll introduce myself. My name is JJ Johannes. I'm with iHomes, obviously, one of the co-founders. Been involved since we started it 16 years ago in 2003. Been a licensed real estate agent since 2012 and a licensed real estate broker since 2014. And Tim, I'll have you introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'm Tim Sherburne, also one of the co-founders of iHomes, as well. Started in 2003. I think I got licensed probably closer in 2011, 2010, somewhere around there. Got my brokerage license probably the same time JJ did, a little bit after, so 2014, 2015. And we both did it to, expand the options that we can have here at iHomes. And so we'll just talk about some of the knowledge we've gained over the years with value on real estate.
Yeah, and as we're going through this, I'm monitoring on my computer here any comments or any questions anybody has. So if you have any comments or questions, go ahead and put those in there. If it's during the live video, we'll try to address those. If it's afterwards on the video, if you're watching a replay of this, we'll try to address that as well. So let's jump right into the pricing model conversation. And so I'll talk a little bit about assessed value. So assessed value, some people will say things like, well, my house is appraised at this. And I'll start asking, okay, so did you refinance lately or did you purchase? No, it's on the assessor's website. And so, sometimes that terminology can get a little, confusing, but the assessed value is what your property is assessed for through the county, or if it's a city that is assessing it, that you pay taxes on. Assessors will go through the property every 5-10 years, or if you have an update that you've done, like finishing a basement, they might come out, but otherwise they're not in your property, every year or every couple years to see any updates you did on it. So the way I look at assessed values, while they can be close to what your house is valued at, they're used more as what you're paying taxes on to the city or the county. So understanding that is an assessed value versus like they'll do adjustments. I'll see where they, every house in a certain area will go up 1.2%. And so that's more of a kind of a overall number that can move a little bit. But again, assessed is more for property taxes and what you're paying on that. So is that what you kind of see on that?
Yeah, no, there's also a multiplier in there. It's called a mill rate. And so you'll see those rates get adjusted. You may actually see your home value get adjusted down or up accordingly. And that really comes into trying to keep your taxes at a consistent number versus as these bonds and stuff get passed, there's going to be fluctuating mill rates. And so they kind of have to adjust your value of your property. So the actual end outcome of what your actual tax payment will kind of stay on a continuous flow. So there's many factors that go into that assessed value that is, again, all for tax purposes and keeping the schools in the community and the roads. If there's any upgrades that need to be done, you'll see those numbers get fluctuated. So there's, they try to be safe and fair on the pricing, but in real estate, there's ups and downs, and they don't want that to be a reflection on your property taxes where one year you're paying a lot and then it drops down. So that's kind of what we see on the assessed values. They should be within range, but you just never know. Every home's a little different.
Yeah, and one of the things, when we're trying to get to how much your house is worth if you're going to sell it, one of the things I've said to people in the past is, the assessed value, I'll say in an area, it seems to be that it can be more in line with what a house is worth. So some areas, houses will consistently sell under assessed value. Other areas, it may consistently sell over assessed value. Some areas will sell right by the assessed value. So in neighborhoods, you can kind of see that, but otherwise it is kind of hard to, kind of pinpoint, well, it's always, 10% over or it's always 10% under. There's not really a consistency there in assessed value that we see in the market value of the home and what it's worth when you go to sell it. So so that's assessed value. Then let's talk about appraised. So you want to touch on appraised value and how those are used?
Yeah, when it comes to appraisals, that's going to be done mostly for financial purposes. Sometimes with estates, they'll need to be appraised to find value there. But that's more on the banking side. They need a unbiased party, licensed professional to come in and give their opinion. But just like we talked about on the assessed value, you get to appraisals, it's subjective opinions. And so you're putting weight on the actual property you're trying to appraise, and then you're actually putting on weight on other properties that have sold recently. Most appraisers are going to value the sold ones because that's what somebody's paid. Has closed, that's public knowledge. They're going to use that. So a lot of times you'll see appraisals are sometimes a little bit behind the market, depending whether it's going up or down, doesn't really matter because they're having to use a sold stat. So as prices are increasing, some of the appraisals are having a hard time to adjust to that because people are willing to pay that much, but the sold statistics aren't there to support that. And it also works the other way when the market's trending down. They have comps that have sold for a very nice number, but now the market is trending down and, everybody's like, well, I have an appraisal from this from 2, 3, 4 months ago. Well, that's fantastic, but that was at that point in time, and now the market's trending the other way. So the ebbs and flows of real estate, kind of with the assessed value appraisals, are not the end all be all anyway. It's just that's the number the bank is going to use, and you can have 2, 3, 4 appraisers come out, and you're probably going to get a little variety of different answers. Not saying one's right, not saying one's wrong. It's just their professional opinion with the data they're using. So we get calls from them just to help them out, give them some support to why we priced it that way. So they're not trying to undermine real estate. They just have to present it in a report to the lender to get the financing to go through.
And on the appraisals, I know that some people will go off appraiser, they'll have an appraisal done to help them price their home. One of the things is to make sure you're having a full appraisal, because sometimes there's desktop or drive-by appraisals where, that is really just kind of looking at square footage, location, price per square foot, garages. I mean, it's using just kind of some data points to come up with the price versus actually going to the home, where a full appraisal is somebody's going into the house, walking through it, seeing what is the condition of the home, what, is it laminate countertops, or do we have granite in here? Do we have custom cabinets, or do we have, stock cabinets? What is the overall condition of the home? Yeah,
mechanicals, roof, the neighbors, traffic. I mean, there's just so many things that actually, like I said, when you're putting weight on all those numbers, nobody's going to have the exact same weight as far as a value of what all that is going to be worth. So it should get you in the right range. But, when it comes to appraisal, you will see definitely some variance in there.
Yeah, one of the things that some people ask is, well, if I get an appraisal done, then when the person buys it, then they can just use that appraisal.
No.
And that's typically, I've never run into a case where that will actually work. It's typically not going to work.
Yeah.
The lender is going to have to order and have their own appraisal for the underwriter. And so just know that appraisal is still going to have to be redone. If you do have an appraisal done to price, you're going to have to get another appraisal then for once you sold it, and it's going to have to reappraise at that price with the opinion of that appraiser versus the other appraiser. And the comps are going to have to, again, still be there to support that price.
Yep.
So then switching to the next one on Zestimate. So on the Zestimate, so this is a really kind of hot topic sometimes in real estate is, so if you're not familiar with what a Zestimate is, if you go to the website Zillow or you pull up the Zillow app, you can search for a property on there, and there will be a Zestimate of what Zillow's estimated value for that property is. And if you're the homeowner, if it's off on square footage or bedrooms, you can make some adjustments, and that will kind of adjust the price. And a lot of people feel strongly that this estimate helps them in whether they're selling or buying and what a house is worth. But again, it's in this case, it's really a data-driven number. It's taking square footage, bedrooms, bathrooms, what is the price per square footage in that area selling for, and then using that multiplier to come up with a price. And we did some research on looking at Zestimates. Zillow actually puts out their own accuracy information out there. And in the state of Iowa, 50% of the homes that sold recently, the Zestimate was off by 5% or more. And then looking at the numbers here again, 30% of the homes were off by at least 10%. And then 15% of the homes that sold recently were off by more than 20%. And so you have a huge potential range there where, if your home is going to sell this year, according to Zillow's past history, there's a 15% chance it could be off by 20% or more in what they have this estimate at. And again, kind of like with the assessed value, I always tell people that when you're looking at the Zestimate, it's a data point to look at for a trend for what your home could be worth, but it's definitely not something that may or may not be accurate, because nobody from Zillow and nobody calculating that Zestimate has been in your house to know if there's holes in the carpet, if there's updated kitchen, if you put in new granite countertops, if you put in a Four Seasons room, whatever it is. They don't know all those things. They're just kind of looking at the data. So,
yeah, no, it's strictly driven off an algorithm. They're trying to price every single property in the United States. So, with some of the JJ's numbers he just ran there, 15% and another 30%. So you're looking about 45% of properties are going to be off by a significant number, at least 5%. So, if the average home is $180,000, $200,000, I mean, a minimum 40% of the homes are off by 10,000. But that can work both ways. They're not always overpriced. I mean, sometimes estimates underpriced. Mm-hmm. So just kind of like the assessed value and their appraisals, everything should end up somewhere in the same range. But when you start looking at thousands of dollars, you kind of want to dial it in if you're going to be serious about selling the property or, potentially looking to put it on the market. Because once you put it out there, then your days on the market start counting. And then it really doesn't even matter what the appraisals are, what the Zestimate is. As homes sit there a little bit, then you're going to start running into some other issues just from the sheer fact that it's been market weary. But
yeah, and you hit on a point there that reminded me something I want to mention is, when a house is off by like 10% or more, I always, because a buyer sometimes will point out, well, that house it's a $200,000 house and it's the Zestimate it's 180, or it's a $180,000 house and the Zestimate's 200. When you're looking to buy or sell real estate, I always say the Zestimate's going to make one person happy. It's going to be the buyer or the seller. If it's off by a lot, one person's going to like that number. The other party is not going to like that number. But again, it's not necessarily true to the market of what that home is worth. It could be dead on. But again, like you were saying, and looking at the numbers, like 40% of the time, it's off by a significant amount. And so wanting to understand more about the details of the home. And that kind of leads us into the next one, the market value. So, what is the market value of a home? And if you want to kind of touch on that topic.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you talk market of anything out there, whether it's at the grocery store or cars or, anything, it's worth what the consumer is willing to pay for it, and it's worth what the seller is willing to take for it. So when you start talking market value, I always tell people, it's almost a lot easier to come up with the asking price because we can have appraisals and we can use this estimate and we can use all these numbers and calculations to prove why we're asking that price. But at the end of the day, we still don't know what the buyers are going to pay for it. And every buyer is unique. And when it comes to buying real estate, there's a lot of timing and luck involved. So you can either be patient and wait for that perfect buyer who's willing to buy that perfect house, or, market value is kind of what the majority of the people would pay for that property at that time. So when you start running into those things, there's a big one that we always want to work with our clients on, and that's their motivation for selling. We want to know what their timetable is, what their goals are. Is it money? I mean, is there a certain dollar value they're trying to get for the home? Do they want it sold by a certain date and want to be closed by this date? Are they not in a hurry and they're just kind of testing the waters to see where they're at with that? That ultimately is going to come down to where we ask. But again, we always want to take into consideration where the market is and what the market is showing us for the values of what other people are doing. And we try to use supply and demand is kind of a big factor in how we go to price things. We're looking at how many homes are on the market right now. That'd be the inventory. What's your competition look like? How many homes will you be competing against? We want to know that. Second one is pending sales. So the more activity that's out there, the more pending sales, there's some good activity. We want to know that as well. Or, there's not a lot of activity. Things just aren't moving right now. So we want to take that into consideration. And then the last one are the solds, homes that have closed in the last 3 to 6 months. So we can now look at what they actually paid for it in relation to the original asking price, how many days it was on the market. If there's any closing costs or anything in there that we should have known that, hey, this included this, or there were some allowances in there, we have to factor that in too. Because when you look at the assessed values and the estimates, they're not looking at purchase contracts. They're not doing anything further in detail to come up with their number. And we don't have access to that information either, but we do have some access through the MLS to look at some different variables when it comes to how they came to that final sold price. So when it does come to the market, timing and luck is there as well, but ultimately we don't control that. We just want to get our clients the tools to understand all this information. So when we hit, the publish button and it's out there to people, we've covered most of these topics according to their plans and their situation and goals, I guess.
Yeah, and a couple points when you're talking about that I thought about. One is again looking at some of the data. Agents, real estate agents use that market value because they're looking at the data of what's going on and looking at the future, trend of supply and demand, or not future trend, but what's out there currently versus just looking at solds, looking at pendings and actives and days on the market. And last year in 2018, if you look at the original list price, homes in Cedar Rapids market in particular sold within 1.9%, 98.1% of asking price. So the margin for error there was, again, we're looking at that smaller margin of error, trying to get a little bit tighter to where they should be. But the other point when you're talking about that, and I know we've talked about this several times, is if a client has a home and they're selling a house and there is 5 on the market and only 1 has sold in the last 6 months and it's sat on the market for 6 months, there's not a lot of demand for that property. And so how are you going to win? Are you going to win on you have more square footage, you have more upgrades? Are you going to win on price or some combination of the two? And then you flip it and you say, okay, well, now you're looking at listing your house. And now your house is one that there's 6 pendings. There's 1 on the market, and the 6 that are pending all went pending within 2 weeks after they went on the market. And there's a lot of solds that support it as well. Well, now you may be able to be a little bit more aggressive on your price. Yeah. The opportunity for you as sellers to look at that, and now you don't have to necessarily win on price. And you have more flexibility in that, and that comes into what you're talking about. Yeah. Depending if you want more money or if you want it to be sold in a certain amount of time, you take those factors in, and then you can help price out to figure out, okay, I have some time, maybe I'm going to go instead of 200, maybe I'm going to go 205 or 210. If I really want to get this sold quickly because I already bought another place or I'm moving out of town, well, then maybe we just go to the 200 and the 199, 900, and we get it sold right away.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people come to us, they come to appraisers, and I'm assuming they're coming to all these other real estate agents as well, looking for the answer. Like they want an answer. They want to know how many days it's going to take, average days on the market, what it's going to sell for. And we just can't predict the future. And anybody that's listed with us before can, testify to this. I'm not here to kind of predict the future and give you the answer. We're more about helping you with the equation, as far as we took in all this information and then we helped you determine the answer that you're going to ask for your house. You're on the same page. We're on the same page. We know what our goals are, because like I said, you can talk to 10, 15, 20 different professionals in this industry and you're going to get all kinds of opinions. And so we want to value the market's opinion, what's been happening out there, but we also want to factor in your opinion and your situation. What are your goals? And that's going to equate to the answer, and we'll help you get through that. But we just can't sit here and say, this is the value you should list your house. It's going to take 7 days to get an offer, and we'll have this thing closed in 45 days. I don't know anybody out there that can do that. I mean, it's just not realistic. So there might be other people that have had that, but it wasn't because of JJ and myself why that happened. That's because of their situation. They had that property. The buyer had that type of financing. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into why homes sell very quickly and why homes sometimes take a little while longer. Might not even be the property. It might just be the market, and they got some misinformation at the beginning, stretched the price a little too far, and now they're battling the consequences from that. So
yeah, and as Tim was mentioning, their pricing and all these things, there's always an opinion. It's someone's opinion, whether it's an agent or appraiser. Zestimate, it's using not an opinion, but it's using data points. If you change the data points, it changes the price, and the home might not have changed at all. And so it's always an opinion of what it's worth. I mean, you could talk to different people and they're probably going to be within the same range, but there could be a little bit of variance of, a few thousand or $5,000, $10,000, depending on how they're interpreting what's going on in the market. And so, everyone's looking at price, location, condition, neighborhood, what's kind of going on overall. And that's something for people to know when you're looking at these numbers. If you get any number from anybody, whether it's you're looking at the assessed that you're looking at the Zestimate, you're looking at an appraisal, you're looking at a market value you got from an agent, it's an opinion of value.
Mhm.
Could you think it could be higher or lower? Yes. Could you get another opinion? Yes. And it probably would be different in some ways, but just those are opinion of value. And ultimately, it's like Tim had mentioned, it's all about what you're looking to do, and then taking that information, taking those opinions of value, and helping it make you successful in selling your home, or make you successful in buying a home if you're looking for a home at a certain price point. So.
No, I guess with any questions, or you can always reach out to us. We're here to be more transparent on how it all works. Make sure you understand kind of where the market is with your home, or you're thinking about buying or selling. I just had one the other day where if you jump in on day one, whenever that is, you have nothing really to compare it to. So if you start your homework early, you can start to see trends in the house that you're trying to sell, or even the house you're trying to buy. If the days in the markets are adding up on some of these homes, that gives you more leverage to make a little lower offer, because we've been doing our homework. Same thing with your house. We may have valued it at this price at one point in time, but the market's heading up or down. You're going to want to know that when you go to list, instead of just doing your homework at the very end and putting a price out there. Either A, you can leave some money on the table, or B, you're going to be racking up some days on the market, and that'll end up costing you some money as well. So I guess anytime, reach out to us, set an appointment. We can meet you at the house, meet you at the office. We're pretty flexible as far as when we can get together and just help educate you guys.
Yep. So again, thank you for joining us on this Facebook Live, talking about pricing models and the differences of those. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to leave comments in this video below, or reach out to us. And we're going to keep putting out these videos weekly to talk about different topics. So if you have anything you'd like to see us talk about, feel free again to reach out to us or leave a comment below. Hope you guys have a great week. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys.